Was fun, huh? Well, we today is the 29th of August, and it's the 100th anniversary of the centenary of probably the greatest saxophone player that ever lived. His name was Charlie Parker. And we are celebrating his life and the influence that he had on all of us. Welcome to my God, I can't pronounce the name of my own show. The Paq-Man's Korner. And we have three very illustrious guests this afternoon. Juanito Ruiz, clarinet player, saxophone player. Diego Urcola, trumpet and flugelhorn and bombardino and everything else, and valve trombone. And the ineffable Scott Robinson. I don't know what to say, if he's a saxophone player or what, because he plays everything wonderful.
Multi-instrumentalist.
That's what it is.
Today you're saying ineffable. Yesterday you were saying F you.
The ineffable Scott Robinson. I remember that I was going to do a show in Miami, and I need somebody who play the Ophicleide. And then I said, I want to buy an Ophicleide. I said, no, you don't have to buy an Ophicleide. Just call it Scott Robinson. Said, he don't play nobody plays the Ophicleide. I'm going to buy it, then give it to Mario Rivera to learn it. No. Scott knows how to play that instrument. And then I called Scott. Said, do you have an Ophicleide? And he said, I have two of them. So you know how to play? Of course I know.
I didn't say that.
Of course I know.
I warned you it would be very out of tune.
Yeah. Well, that is part of the
I got to play with Cachao. That was an incredible experience for me.
Yeah. The great Cachao, what a character, huh?
Yeah, that was a wonderful experience.
They were playing some danzones, right?
Of course, a couple of them. Couple of danzones. The name of the show was Absolute Paquito, because it was was presented by Absolute Vodka.
All
And,
right.
and the guy who was a French guy, he said, no Spanish here. In Miami, he said, no Spanish. You have to speak in English. And it was funny, me talking in English to Cachao. Well, I felt the same way here now, more or less. So
They filmed it or something? That was for a film?
I don't think so. Probably, you never know. These days they film everything. But in this case, yeah, we're taping here, and we are celebrating the life of Charlie Parker. And probably you wonder, how you're not celebrating the life of Charlie Parker? You start playing Tico Tico, which was composed by a Brazilian composer. And I will tell you why. Charlie Parker, Machito, recorded an LP with Charlie Parker, or Charlie Parker recorded with Machito, a CD called, an LP called South of the Border or something. Probably you heard that. Yeah, South of the Border. And they record La Cucaracha, and among those many tunes, he recorded Tico Tico. And he played that thing so marvelous, well, like everything that he played, that when I played Tico, I used to play Tico Tico as a kid all the time, my father too. But since I heard Charlie Parker playing that version, I decided that I will never play in the game with the alto, never. So that's why I play with the clarinet as a tribute to Charlie Parker. And I remember the words of Machito. Machito came to me and said, I asked him, please, Machito, tell me something about Charlie Parker. Did you ever, of course, you met him, you worked with him. And he said, Paquito, I met Charlie Parker and we recorded together that LP of Latin American music, mainly Cuban stuff and all that. And I have to tell you that Charlie didn't understood one single note of Cuban music or anything. He didn't know what the clave was or who Chano Pozo was before. He didn't know nothing about Cuban music or anything about Latin music. He didn't speak one single word in Spanish. But that guy, anything that he played, he like that King Midas. Remember that? He said, what do you mean Midas? What happened? What Charlie Parker had to do with King Midas? He said, anything that guy touch become gold. So you can play whatever, Cuban, Chinese music, and when he start playing, he plays his own stuff and sounds better. I don't know how he do that. And that's why I start this show as with a Latin American piece, a Brazilian piece, Tico Tico. Charlie Parker was an absolute genius, and he has such an impact in all Latin America and the whole world. And I wanted you commenting something about the first time that you heard Charlie Parker, the impression that you have of his playing. Scott, can you say something about the bird?
Yeah, the first thing I want to say is that I was there when you played the plastic saxophone.
Wow! The clapton!
That's the first thing I want to say. You remember that?
That was in Kansas City, right?
Kansas City.
Yeah.
Kansas City. They send the saxophone with two policemen. Remember that? Escorting the saxophone.
You made the front page of the Kansas City Star the next morning.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the actual horn that he played. It's
the Grafton.
Like this one.
You see, he got everything.
The plastic one, right?
Yeah, the plastic one.
But they're great horns. They sound beautiful. And
they sound very good. They probably need to get parts for that instrument, huh?
Yeah, they're very difficult to repair.
Very difficult to repair.
But anyway, somebody like Charlie Parker, Ornette Coleman. He got a great sound, but Parker played so many horns because he was always in the pawn shop,
Yeah.
They different horns all the time, and it always sounds just, just like Charlie Parker. I would say this, probably he's maybe in his time, he was probably, to me, to my way of thinking, the number 3 person in terms of major contributors to the language as a horn player after Louis Armstrong and Lester Young. Those two really contributed so much language that everyone after them used. And then Charlie Parker, I think, is number 3.
That's a good remark. Yeah, well, you know what? Buddy DeFranco told me once something very drastic. You know, he told me once, you know something, Paquito? Charlie Parker invented single-handed this language that we call today bebop. I said, well, what about the rest, Dizzy and Monk, and so we all, because he was part of that thing too. The only one with the clarinet was him. And he said, we develop the language, we use it, and we cooperate to advance the language to contribute. But the person who put that thing together from scratch, from nothing, was Charlie Parker. And Jimmy Heath told me several times, I never heard nobody playing like that before. So I don't know. Jimmy Heath say, I don't know if he invented or anything, but I never heard nobody playing like that, those lines before, or even the approach to the instrument. I heard many times, too many times, that he comes from Lester Young. Of course, I love Lester Young, but I don't hear one single note of Lester Young in Charlie Parker's playing. Do you have a different opinion, Scott?
I hear some Lester Young in there, but I wouldn't say it's based on that language.
No.
But you know what's interesting about Lester, I mean, is all of the tenor players that started out playing like Lester and ended up sounding completely different, like Dexter Gordon and Stan Getz.
Stan Getz, yeah.
How different did those two sound, Dexter Gordon and Stan Getz? But if you listen to their early recordings, they're all trying to be Lester, all those tenor guys.
Everybody wanted to play like Lester Young.
No, I think Parker was an original, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. He started playing some lines. I remember the first time I heard him playing, I was a kid, and we were at home. My father was a classical saxophone player, and but he liked Stan Getz and Lester Young and all those guys, and he came with this. We used to listen to Benny Goodman and the Artie Shaw Orchestra, the Ellington Orchestra. My father came with that LP, one of those little LPs of Charlie Parker with Dizzy. No, actually, Dizzy was playing piano in that recording. And I commented that with Dizzy later and said, the piano never arrived. Then I had to play the piano there. And then Miles was playing the trumpet. And when he played that for me, I was, as I said before, I was used to listen to the swing player. He played that for me, the entire LP, and say, you like it? I was a kid, but I remember then I said, no, I don't. My father said, me either. But they are you can feel that they are great musicians. Only that they are playing something like Chinese music or something. Well, of course, with the time pass by, and then we all get used to that language. But Bird was such an American original, and has a great impact in Latin America too. How did you hear about Charlie Parker, Diego, for the first time in Argentina?
Well, I think I was trying to remember now, but I mean, I remember one of the first records that I got when I started to listen to jazz was a duo record by it was DC and Oscar Peterson. I don't know if you are familiar with that record.
Yeah, of course, I had that.
Yeah, yeah,
Pablo Records.
yeah, yeah. So that's that's how I discovered DC, and then trying to find other recordings. I got a few. I think a few live. I don't remember the name of the records, but they were like live records, and that's the first time I heard Charlie Parker. And then when I started studying improvisation, my first kind of like improvisation teacher was an alto player who was a guy who taught classical saxophone at the school where I was. It was a high school that I was attending at that time, and he was the first guy who introduced me to Charlie Parker, and I think he gave me a few recordings, and also was the guy who first gave me the famous Omnibook,
Oh,
and that's how I started studying bebop. It's like that was my first thing, because before that I was just playing more like a New Orleans kind of jazz, and that's what I started. That wasn't the first thing that I started to learn. The Omnibook. The B flat. He gave me a B flat Omnibook, and I started to learn Charlie Parker solos, trying to find the recordings, and then after a while, when I was able to play a couple of them, I don't remember, and I remember getting together with a piano player, a friend of mine, and he kind of like played the changes of the tunes for me, so I was able to. I mean, a slower tempo that the original recordings, but I was able to play the solos and the tunes, hearing the harmony, so you start. I didn't know anything about harmony at that time. It was, but just kind of like get into my ear, the lines and how they interact with the harmony and stuff. So that's how I first became aware of him.
That something that is very interesting and intriguing to me is the bebop language. It's something that, to my experience, these days they can teach anything, but that language is something that you get it or you don't. I remember great players in Cuba. We used to play Dixieland and traditional jazz and all that, and they never got to good musicians. They never got together the for some reason. This language, you get it or you don't. What can you say about that, Juanito? For example, you went to Berkeley and you studied with a great teacher there, which is Leclerc, Shannon Leclerc.
I think Shannon explained to me very well the bebop.
No shit, I can't believe. Yeah.
But before that, I think the first time I really started digging Charlie Parker was I asked Oscar Estañaro, and I said, "Hey, tell me about Paquito. I want to play with Paquito. I want to play like Paquito." And he said, "Well, you got to transcribe Charlie Parker and Benny Moré." I start digging Charlie Parker so much, but I actually thought somehow that you transcribe more Sonny Stitt.
Oh.
I thought Paquito sounded more like Sonny Stitt. But anyway, I start transcribing the two of them, Charlie and Stitt. But in Berkeley, they explain much better. I think same as what happened with Diego back in Colombia. I mean, I listened to that, but I never had much knowledge of harmony or what was going on. But when I came here, it's more clear, and jazz musicians here really know the language really well. So, yeah, Berkeley. I think I have to thank Berkeley for that, for explaining that concept to me more pedagogically. I think I didn't understand it well back in Colombia.
Well, I will tell you something. The knowledge of harmony is very important, but I didn't know about nothing about harmony uh, until much later. I start copying copying the language, not the meaning of the thing. So I think, well, in my case, I learned those pieces, not by analyzing the chords or anything. I never had that ability for some reason. But I learned the language by listening to different players, not only Charlie Parker, but many others, Dizzy and Miles, and all the, even Paul Desmond. I mean, and Lee Konitz, who was the one who was playing something different than Charlie Parker. How did you learn that language? How do you, Scott? How did you learn how to work with the language? The
Yeah, first of all, I'm going to tell you my theory, which is that that language really starts with Louis Armstrong.
No kidding.
Yeah. Because if you listen to, I don't have a horn in front of me with a mouthpiece, but if you listen to 1925, Cornet Chop Suey, the line that the main line of that tune goes boop ba-doo ba-doo. Me, that's a bebop line in 1925. And nobody talks about this, but I think it starts there.
Yeah.
I really do. That's my own theory. But of course, that was not his language that he's known for, but I think he planted that seed in 1925 and it grew into something down the road. But if you listen to Cornet Chop Suey, tell me what you think.
Wow.
Tell me that's not a bebop line.
It sounds very bebop to me.
Yeah.
But
That's my opinion. Anyway, the way you learn, the language, of course, you know this, you all know this, is the way you learn any language is by being around it and growing up with it and absorbing it all the time. And so somebody like me that was an excited kid, just as I'm sure all of you were, I was listening to music every day and just absorbing those shapes and those forms and that kind of language and checking out the way different players come along and add to the language and become like storytellers. You know how we have an expression that, oh yeah, so-and-so has a way with words. This exists in music too. Somebody who has a way with words can take similar kind of language, but the way they speak it, there's no question who's doing the talking.
yeah, you know that it's exactly like a language. Some people have more talent than others to understand different idioms. You know, people that have the facility to play any language, and some other people, it's harder for them to understand how language moves. But what I know for a fact is that this language, you get it or you don't. You know, people that have been around us for so long, and it's no way they can do no. It's yeah. It's incredible. They keep playing a little scale going on, and that. You can notice immediately when a person knows is familiar with the bebop language or they are not, because they start using, first of all, the pentatonic scales. You know, instead of I don't know how to explain that, but probably that happened to you also, Diego, huh? That.
Well, yeah, and I think, like, one of the things that nowadays the way the young kids learn, you know, this music, this language. Sometimes is that I don't think, as far as I know, you know, Charlie Parker wasn't like a guy who, you know, he didn't analyze too much what he was playing. It was like a kind of like a thing that he developed, and and now it's like everything, you know, they they don't they kind of like you know learn these patterns and licks and stuff like that, but you know. That wasn't and they relate everything with the harmony and all of that, but I think at the early stage of the bebop, you know, it was more like we're talking about, we're like just learning a language, learning learning a way of playing, you know, and then later on they started to kind of like intellectualize it, you know. Dizzy was probably more like a guy who was more like into the, you know, the chords and, you know, what were like, you know, what was happening there, you know. But a lot of stuff was just like, you know, just like learning the language, you know. So for me it was a good thing, because when I started playing this kind of music, I didn't know, you know, if, you know, like technically what I was doing. I was just trying to get the lines and see how they work with the harmony, and, you know, but not the chord, just the sound of the chords and the progression, you know, the 2/5 progressions, all the stuff. Then much later, and I was already playing a little bit, you know, and later I started, okay, this is like flat 9 or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. But my process was first like more like an intuitive process, you know. Then I kind of like started to, you know, study more like, you know, in theory, what was this thing was all about, you know. And in a way, I think it was better, because for me, it's like I always play better when I'm, you know, like a young kid always say, how you do to play all these lines? I was like, well, because you can you can play all that stuff because you're not thinking about it. Because the minute that you're thinking about it, boom, it's gone, you know. So even though you know, I then started to learn, you know, harmony and how this relate to this. When I play, you know, I never, I mean, when I try to think about what I'm doing, or what I'm gonna do or stuff like that, that's when I get into trouble, you know. But when I trust just like what I hear, what, you know, my instincts, I think when the best stuff comes out, you know.
Yeah, it's, you know, my cat is calling me. What do you want? I will see you later on. You know. So what happened with you? This is a jazz cat, you see?
Over here, there's another cat on the show.
Miguelito is
Mine came too. Look.
Two cats on the show.
cat that like music.
Yeah.
You know that it's different people and different situations. In many cases, it's hard to explain what you do. Why? Because this music is basically the appeal of this music is the improvisation. No? The improvisation facts is what these people come to see. And sometimes you, I don't know if that happened to you, but I am sure that happened to you. Sometimes you do things improvising that you didn't plan. And when you hear, you say, Jesus Christ, did I play that? I will tell you a very interesting story. My brother used to play the saxophone, the alto saxophone in Tropicana, the club, Tropicana Club. Used to play there. And they have a rehearsal. And in the rehearsal, and one morning they have we used to live 10 blocks from Tropicana. So my brothers, they prepared a practical joke to me. My brother asked me to attend the rehearsal because he was not able. He had a dentist or something. You want to sit in? Yeah. I will go for you. Oh, my saxophone is in the, and you can sit in there, please, and do that. Okay. Then I went to the rehearsal. I now remember that they play a piece con ñame, no, a bailar bembé. Son de verdad. And a bailar bembé, it was a very long chart because was for some dancing to do some choreography in the cabaret. So we play pop, pop, piri, pop. First page, second page, and then the third page, not to turn like that. There was no iPad in those days. So when I turn it, it looks like 1,000 of flies. I take the shit on that in that paper was all over, full of notes, and they say solo. So piri para pa, and you say I said, who wrote this? This is impossible to play. Nobody can play this shit. Who wrote this for the saxophone? That is not, you cannot play that thing. Say, no, Pepe, play back. Then he played my own recording of that beat that I wrote. And what I mean with this is that sometimes you do things when you are improvising that you don't think about it. You don't think in harmony or anything, especially if you know the changes and all. And then you discover that you have played a beautiful solo or a horrible solo too. That happened too. Once one of my best solos in recording is something that I did with Michel Camilo, big band. And I was not sure about the harmony, and I was reading all the time. And came out being a very nice solo. Sometimes I record things that I know and sound like shit.
This music's full of surprises.
It's full of surprises, that's what it is. It's amazing, but well, thanks God to Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie that he created this language for us that we can use it around when we are not very creative. The day that we are not very creative, we use the lines from Charlie Parker and it's always sounding beautiful.
Did he ever try to play this? Did he ever try to play clarinet, Parker? You know?
What do you mean, clarinet Parker?
You know,
Charlie Parker played clarinet.
You know if Parker ever tried to play clarinet?
I read something about that.
Yeah.
That apparently before he died, he was talking to somebody about the need that he need to double. So he wanted to learn flute and clarinet.
Okay, but he never did.
No, he never. Apparently, he never did. But he talked about it to somebody.
So that means that his first instrument was the alto? The alto was his first instrument. That is what you mean?
I think
I'm asking. I don't know.
I think that's what I read, yes.
That he played just the alto. Well, another thing that is interesting about Bert is that he uses, I never heard him playing not even the high F sharp.
Yeah.
And I think you told me that he once you hear him playing the F sharp in the recording. I never heard that recording.
I had when he played a G and an A.
No, yeah. What is that recording? I never heard him playing those.
I think it's something new. They come out, a new mastering or something. But yes, I heard a G and an A in the whole entire recording.
Wow, that's interesting. Because I've always heard that Lester Young never played above the horn either.
No, huh? No, they don't need it. I mean, Scott, probably you know of a Finnish musician, a pianist called Esko Linavalli. You remember him?
Yeah, yeah.
Esko was a very dear friend of mine, like my brother. And he said, you know, you guys who have that technique, that is very easy to be a musician when you have that technique. Said, what do you mean with that? He said, but when you have problems, you know, that you run out of ideas, and you start playing all over the horn, and that's it. But Bob Burgmeyer had an octave and 3 notes, and he played beautiful with all that. Interesting, that. Same thing with Charlie Parker. He never used the high notes or anything, and everything that he like the King Midas, like Machito say.
That's an exercise. I think Diego knows this trumpet player, Greg Hopkins.
Yeah.
I know Greg
Very
Hopkins.
fine musician.
I know Greg Hopkins.
He told me many times, like, yeah, you're using too much of the clarinet, and the clarinet has very long range. Like, how about let's do a solo in the first octave only?
That's a good exercise, huh?
It's a very hard thing to do, yes. So actually, I'm curious about that. So what, for all of you, what are the exercises you took over the years to practice a very hard chord progression or something that you're not familiar with? So how do you approach that at the beginning? How you practice?
I never thought about that. I learned. My father was a classical saxophone player. I played the high notes and all that. I always practice all over the instrument. But that's a good practice to improvise in a few notes only. It's like being on a diet.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Jufrey did some of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, in the lower
register clarinet, and there's some famous story about somebody saying when they were going to hire Jimmy Jufrey, well, who's going to play the other half of the clarinet? You know? but yet, then you listen to those incredible recordings that he did with Paul Bley, Steve Swallow, that trio, those trio recordings are astonishing, and he's all over the horn. And you realize, oh, okay, this guy, if all you know is the train in the river, you don't realize that he could really play the horn all up and down the horn. Incredible clarinet player.
Maybe he found the other part of the clarinet that he lost.
Found it in his sock drawer.
Yeah. It's interesting that that there is a piece of coming back to Charlie Parker, a piece that I love by Charlie Parker that Miles Davis he wrote it, and I think it was Harry Sweet Ellingson. He told me, no, that was Charlie Parker who wrote that, which is Donna Lee.
Oh yeah, that's a famous story. Yeah.
The famous story, right? Yeah. What do you hear about that? Why Miles insists that he wrote that?
Well, Miles, I think I heard what I heard is, well, because Miles was also supposedly, he took credit of a lot of tunes that he didn't write. So whenever people complain about that, he will say, well, that was Charlie Parker did to me. So.
But it's so logical, it's when you hear that those are not Miles lines. That have nothing to do with Miles,
Yeah, who knows? I mean,
Juanito, you have a version of that piece there, right?
Oh yes,
that we recorded.
Yes, let me put that recording.
What is that?
Donna Lee, something that
Donna Lee, okay.
Yeah,
Donna Lee with strings.
With Donna Lee with strings. You will see. This we did a tribute to Charlie Parker with strings, to Bert with strings in Lincoln Center.
Let me share that to everybody.
You know that I never heard that before, after I recorded it. I love it so the super sax in a string section, huh? For that concert, I even bought a saxophone like Charlie Parker had in the. Probably Scott had one like this, huh? Scott, you have one like this too?
Or King,
The Super 20?
Yeah, I do have the king, but not the one with the pearls all the way up here.
Oh,
But yeah,
it's a great sounding instrument. Yeah,
yeah, those
the
things have
king
a
has it.
big sound. I don't know what it is about those.
I really don't know what in the beautiful quality sound and big one, and it's just different, you know.
And you can play those king horns. You can play them with the keys very low action, very low, and the horn just speaks.
Yeah,
On my con, if I try to put the keys down that low, it muffles the whole thing. The keys had to be up high, but for some reason on the king, it's the way it's made. You can have the keys very low.
yeah, it's a very nice horn. Not very comfortable, but well, you are used to those old instruments.
Yeah.
I had also I had a tenor at home that I think you will love to play one day. One day I'm going to give it to you.
Okay, good.
For a couple of weeks. It's a Martin. It's a Martin 1936. My father used to play that instrument.
Oh, really? Wow.
It's a silver Martin 19. Yeah, I will show it to you. It's really nice.
Scott, you have a con, right? You play a con mostly like the alto? Yeah.
Yeah.
The alto was my grandfather's, and the tenor I've been playing since I was a kid. There it is. Yeah.
The tenor is a con too. You play?
It's a con that I bought in an antique shop in 1975 for $77.50.
No kidding.
Do you know? I post.
It's the same tenor I play today.
Wow. I post a little clip that I found on YouTube of I think it was a '69. Gato Barbieri. It was a backstage. It was a documentary about, I think, an Italian festival, and Gato is showing his tenor to Johnny Griffin, you know.
Mm.
And Gato at the time was probably a few years, you know, just I don't know who he was playing at that time, but you know, he probably been in Europe like a few years, or maybe not even that. But he had a tenor, a con, and the funny thing, I mean, I posted that just for my Argentinian friends, because he was, you know, he was like showing Johnny Griffin something that he added to one of the keys. I think it was like you know, I don't know if they have it here in the States, but they have it like a paste, you know, like you put together two pastes and it becomes like really hard. Epoxy, yeah. In Argentina they call it popsicle. Popsicle. So Gato was like explaining him how he shaped this key with epoxy and make it look like a Selmer, you know.
How I understand.
He played a con tenor with a Selmer neck on it. I've seen pictures.
Oh yeah? Oh, okay.
Who was it? The Gato?
Yeah, Gato. He had a con tenor with a Selmer neck, at least for a while.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, at that time it was. He said it was all con, but now, but he only made that little thing, you know, in one of the keys to make it. I don't know, maybe it was more comfortable or something. I think it's the G sharp or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. Somebody explained it to me.
You know that many years ago, I was in the office of Bruce Lundell. Remember Bruce Lundell? I was going to talk about that.
I was going to ask you about this.
Well,
one of my favorite records.
No kid. Well, I was in the office of Bruce Lundell in the days that he was leaving CBS to Elektra. The Elektra musician. What's the name of that company? And there was a guy who sold him the tape of that live recording of Charlie Parker with a big band. I don't remember anymore where was that or anything, but was a live recording that stayed, you know, in the obscurity for so long. And then Bruce Randall was so excited about putting together that LP, which Charlie Parker with a big band. Scott, you know that recording?
No.
Electric. Juanito,
I know the
show it to us,
recording.
the cover. Mira.
I know the record that he played with Woody Herman Band. He plays Four Brothers. That's an incredible record. But this other one, I don't know it.
He played for brother with the tenor or with the alto?
Alto.
Maybe playing the first tenor, because that originally was for just for tenors and the baritone, no?
Yeah, but when he just guested with the Woody Herman Band, he played solos. He just played solos. You know, he did a few tunes with them. It's an interesting record. There's one break in there that's just unbelievable. I played it over and over 100 times. It's amazing. You know, Four Brothers is a very tricky bridge, and the first time the bridge comes around, Bird is like, he doesn't quite have it, you know. But then the second time it comes around, he nails it, and then from then on, he's got it, you know.
That was it, yeah.
Big ears, really, really, really big ears. But I don't know this other recording.
In this recording, the last track is Red Ronnie talking. And he actually said exactly the same you're saying. He had big ears.
Say that, yeah?
Yeah, he said exactly the same way actually Scott just said it. That he followed the big band and he didn't have charts. He just came to the recording and he had his black plastic horn and he was able to hear anything that was happening.
And what was the band?
This is it's called 19 Washington Charlie Parker with orchestra. So Jim Riley alto, Jim Parker, Angelo trompos, Ben Larry, Jack Nimitz, trumpets Ed Letty, Marky Markowitz, Charlie Walt, Bob Carey, trombones Carol Swope, Rob Swope, Don Spiker, and the rhythm section was Jack Holiday, Mert Oliver, Joe Timer.
But who's the conductor?
It's presented by Willis Conover.
Willis Conover, yeah.
Joe Timer,
From the Voice of America.
Joe Timer, musical conductor.
Joe Tyner?
Joe Timer.
Probably it's a pickup band. If it's presented by Willis Conover, probably you guys don't know who Willis Conover is.
Well, I know who Willis.
Oh, yeah.
Voice of America guy, sure.
The Voice of America guy, that guy saved the life of so many people behind the Iron Curtain. Because he had I did his show once, because I used to listen all the time to the music of the new, for example, the new Miles Davis Quintet, you know, with Ron Carter and Herbie Hancock and all that. I heard for the first time through Willis Conover, and I was in the army, you know, in the post in the army, listen very quiet to shortwave, the program of Willis Conover. I didn't know that was produced by Willis Conover, but it's a fantastic fantastic recording. And I heard that Charlie Parker never rehearsed or anything. He just came and played.
Played with a plastic horn that time.
The Grafton.
Red Ronnie says the plastic horn, you could see through it. So
wow, that's an even one.
He said he came with a plastic horn that you could see through the horn. So maybe it was,
no kidding.
But it was a different plastic horn.
Yeah, but the Grafton, you don't see through it.
No, but light comes through it. Light will shine.
Oh, maybe that's the same one.
But the light will shine through it. This is why it's a problem to repair, because you put a leak light inside the light comes through the plastic.
You make a lamp.
Everything looks like it would make a beautiful lamp, but don't anybody do that.
Very interesting. I wonder when did Bird find that horn? I heard that was on his horn.
I heard a few different stories. I heard it came out of a pawn shop in Canada. Then I heard that some English person gave it to him. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know what is interesting is that, in my opinion, that is one of the best recordings I ever heard of Bird. Not of his best of recording of everybody, the quintet. No, his playing is so superb. so creative and so fantastic in that recording, with the plastic, with an instrument that he never played before or something. So is I am talking about the Massey Hall concert.
Yeah.
That they have to re-record the bass part.
Yeah.
Charles Mingo was the bass player. For those of you that don't know, Charles Mingo was playing, re-recorded the bass. Max Roach, Bob Powell, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker. Jesus Christ, what a quintet! Incredible. I think that was one of the final reunion of Dizzy with Charlie Parker. From there on, they took their own way. Well, if you want to comment anything else, because I am so happy that we have in this celebration of Charlie Parker, three of my favorite musicians, Juanito, Scott, and Diego, people that made my life so happy through all these years.
Mm.
Talking about Charlie Parker, and well, hope the next time we can get together personally in one of your barbecues.
Miss you very much, Paquito and Diego. I miss you guys very, very much.
Yeah, me too, man. Good to see you.
We want to finish by playing something from that concert that we did in tribute to Charlie Parker, to Bird with Strings. And this is had a very symbolic title. This is, what is this thing called love? And of course, we played in a mambo tempo for the change. Thank you. Gracias.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Be well.